Today I'm going to show you how to process photos non-destructively in Photoshop. Non-destructive means that you're not going to affect any of the original image data. So you always can go back and adjust each parameter in your adjustments. I've already processed this photo in Lightroom. I want to adjust the color and contrast. So the first thing I'm going to do before that is clone out this dark spot of water over here. And if I were to do this destructively, I would go to the clone stamping tool and clone stamp onto the layer directly. So to do it non-destructively, I just have to create a new layer. I'm also gonna select the rocks out so that I won't paint on the rocks. And then use the clone stamping tool on this layer. Doing it this way will allow me to go back and make more adjustments if I need to. And also I can adjust the opacity and even erase or adjust it even more. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is adjust the contrast. And the destructive way of doing this is to create the contrast directly onto the image. So by creating a curves layer or a curves adjustment directly onto the photo, I won't be able to go back and edit this curve. So to create a non-destructive contrast adjustment, I just have to go to my adjustment layers and create a curve adjustment. And now I can create that S curve to increase the contrast. And I can go back anytime and adjust all the settings. So I can do the same thing with color balance if I want to make this a bit more blue and red. I can go back and adjust the color even more. Another thing is dodging and burning. So the destructive way of dodging and burning is to use the tool directly onto the image. You won't be able to adjust the image later on. So the way to create a dodge and burn layer is to create a new layer and change the blending mode to soft light. And now I can just use the brush tool using white and black as my dodge and burn. So I'm just going to reduce the opacity and using a black brush, I'm going to size it down a bit and let's see, 10% opacity. And then I can paint on this bright water over here to darken it. I also can use the white brush to brighten up the foreground water over here. So doing it this way, I don't affect the original photo, and I always can go back and make more adjustments. If I want to brighten this even more, I can do that. So to create a vignette non-destructively, I want to use the elliptical marquee tool and then just create an oval selection over the image and then simply create a curve adjustment layer and then take it down to the amount I want the edges to be darkened. But first I have to invert this mask, and then I click on the layer mask again and go to my properties and then feather it out a lot, so maybe around 400. So it depends on the resolution of the image. So that's a non-destructive vignette that I can go back and adjust later. So there's always situations where I won't be able to edit the image non-destructively. So in this case, I want to create a glow effect, and the only way to do this is to do it on a finished image. So I want to create a clone stamp, a stamp image of all the layers that are visible. This is a copy of everything visible. And for this to work properly, I can't make any more adjustments. If I do, I'll have to delete this layer and do it again. So to create the glow effect, I'm gonna do a Gaussian blur and adjust the opacity down to around 15%. Create a curve adjustment layer and create a clipping mask to the layer, and then use an S curve. That'll create the glow effect. Now this effect is quite harsh, or does quite a bit, especially to the foreground and the sky. And I want to lessen this effect just to the sky and some of the foreground. I like it the way it is in the water over here. So to do that, I'm going to create a layer mask. So if I was going to do it destructively, I would just use the eraser tool and then just simply erase out the image, and that's doing it non-destructively, and I won't be able to change it back if I ever close the document. So by using a layer mask, I can just hide specific parts of the image, and the data is still there. I can just go back and create it back on white or black. So using the brush, I'm going to lower the opacity to around, or make the opacity to around 50% using a black brush. I'm going to size it up and start painting it out of the foreground and also the clouds. So if I alt click on the layer mask, I can see what it does to the image. So 50%, using a 50% brush, it's kind of creating a gray part. And now if I disable the layer mask, you can kind of see the effect. I don't know if you can see that, but the effect, there's less of a glow effect on the sky and the foreground. So finally, the non-destructive way of cropping is to, when I go to the crop tool, I'm going to make sure this is unchecked. Delete crop pixels, I don't want to delete them. So that means I can crop it, and then if I want to change it, I can go back and change it. Or if I want to reset it, I can go to image and reveal all, and that'll reset the crop. So that's non-destructive editing. So I can always go back and adjust each of these layers. So there's the cloning layer, there's a contrast layer, color balance layer, dodge and burn, vignette, and then the glow effect. So this is the only layer that is kind of destructive, but it's not affecting the original image. But I would have to delete this effect to create more adjustments. But even then, it's not too bad because the opacity is only 16%. So if I want to adjust the color, it'll still show the effect just fine. If you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up and please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.